All right, there we go. Hello, everybody. It gets so official so fast when the recording starts, right? Uh, it's the new week. It is Monday, September 28th. Where are you today? You are here at the AT Town Hall. Well, welcome. I'm glad to have you guys here. I see a handful of people have turned on their cameras. Not a whole lot, and that's okay. Um, as we go through, feel free to participate in any way you want. That's fine. Um, we are hosting these through our Assistive Technology Act project. So there's our contact information. I am the director of our center. If you have ideas about an upcoming AT Town Hall that you want to propose, I would love to hear that. I think that's great. I tried to do something that we talked about last week um, as far as what we do as a conversation today. So we'll see how that goes. And we can always adjust again as we continue on. So there's all my contact information. Make sure you're comfortable chatting however you want to, whether through the chat window, if you want to turn your mic on, or your camera. If you have not been in one of these before, we are, as you can see, an incredibly low-key group. So feel free and do whatever you'd like. It's just basically a conversation for an hour with a real loose structure and a couple ideas to start from. But this conversation can go any way you guys want. I'm game. I've already exhibited my power over the Zoom by changing Sarah to Murph. So, I mean, the rest is just icing at this point. I've already done what I needed to do today. So that's perfect. So we always start these with if anybody wants to share something positive from the past week or some kind of tech success you had. And if no one's got one, I can certainly talk about that captioning thing again, which was pretty great now that I actually have that. So I'll open it up to the group. David, I know you said you had your whole group here today. Do you guys want to pop on and give us a sense of who you are, what you're doing, and what drove you guys to join us today? Not to put you on the spot or anything. Ooh, so the pressure, right? It was too much.
He's coming back from outer space. It takes a while to get there.
No, it's all right. All right, if he doesn't want to, that's okay. Anybody else?
Well, I was going to say, while he's turning his on, I was going to say I attended this most fantastic AAC After Work seminar that was done by one Murph in her other formal capacity. It was super fantastic. And my favorite part, honestly, was watching the chat box and having people kind of comment on things that, some of the tips and tricks were not like gigantic technological put 5 things together. It was just like, oh, I've never really thought about doing it that way. So it's always fun to do. I love AC After Work because I'm always in the minority as an OT. And I love to see the SLPs kind of see some of the tech stuff, because a lot of them on there they have one kid who uses AAC and that's it. So it's always kind of interesting I watch the chat box trying to kind of see what are people's reaction and what are the things that they are most excited about. And it was just like thing after thing after thing that they were like, oh, I want to try this, or that's a really great idea. So kudos, Murph.
Thank you. And Alyssa, thanks for double tuning into AT chat and my session because they overlapped.
That was impressive. As a way to handle your business, Alyssa, impressive to do AT chat and that simultaneously. Sarah, can people see that as a recording? Is it available somewhere?
Yes. So it's free for the next 2 weeks, I think. And then like mid-October, it'll be on the Exceptional Ed website, but you have to pay after that. So definitely get on it.
Awesome. And it's there now on the Exceptional Ed website now, but for free? Look at that. And just like magic, the link appears in the chat. Nicely done. This is the beauty of us all working together on this. It makes us all look incredibly professional right now. Really handling business. Cool.
Oh wait, there's all of David's friends. I see now. They're all gathered together.
Are they like wait, I can see the whole group?
Yeah.
Wait, there they all
Hi there.
Hey guys.
You asked us, some of us participated this summer during the summer meetings. So that's why we're continuing to do that. And we've had direct consultation with Gail as we're working on our 3-year plan here. So that's why we're here.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad you guys have taken this as a chance to kind of get together and sit and chat about this. Since your mic's already on, David, I'll put you on the spot one more time, or for anybody in your group, share with us something good that's happening there.
We have just gotten a hold of iPads for our special ed kids, so that each classroom has a self-contained classroom has a cart and has that available to them. We can use it for communication. We can use it for curriculum. So that's been a really big thing for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. Love to hear it. Well, I'm glad you guys are here, and feel free to throw that mic on at any point and jump in. We'd love to have you guys here. That's exciting. Thanks for pointing that out. They were in the second group of pictures of people, so I didn't see the whole group sitting there. So that's good. Thank you. Awesome. Anybody else? Any other good stuff from the past week? Oh, I hear somebody turning on their mic, which means someone's about to say something. I'm looking for something while you guys are doing that.
I was gonna say, I think my only positive story was I absolutely did no work for anything on Sunday.
Oh.
I did like nothing. I like maybe looked at Facebook a couple times and Twitter, but like no email, no, just on Sunday. Saturday I worked a little bit, but Sunday I tried.
Alyssa, I did the same thing. You inspired me to try to draw a line, and on Saturday I did a little bit, but it was a passion project for me. And on Sunday I did nothing, and I hung out with my parents and my family.
Nice, nice. And how much better do you both feel for it? Exactly.
Great.
I did the same thing. I did nothing on Saturday, but I'm a Giants fan, so I bailed out of that game quickly yesterday and did some work while I was sitting on the couch. But good for you, Jennifer, your Packers. A night game is too late for me. I got to go to bed before the end of it. But yeah, I watched it. That was a great game. So yeah, I'm happy your team's good. Bravo. I'm so bitter. I'm such a bitter football fan now. I'm so angry about it. But one of the link that I put in the chat was, I'm going to keep harping on this because it was just that good. We did our New Jersey AT Summit. Now it's 2 weeks ago. And it was awesome. And all the recordings are there. So if you missed it, you can go back in and look at the schedule. And every session was recorded, with the exception of one, which we had a mess up with the recording. So we'll go back in and we'll record that separately. But every other session was recorded. The information is there. The presenters shared great resources in addition to the recording. So definitely pass that around and make sure everybody gets that. Murph, you're a Giants fan too. I'm sorry to hear that. You shouldn't have to suffer through that like the rest of us. All right, so those are our quick tips and our successes. So taking on what we talked about last week as a way to maybe jumpstart a conversation, I went back to AT Chat from last Wednesday and I thought about a question that maybe didn't get a ton of conversation. It's always interesting. It corresponds a lot of times. Less conversation is either question one, because people are still working their way in, or towards the end as people start to get wrapped up in conversations from prior questions. So I thought I would start with throwing this one out, mostly because this is just something that's interesting to me. So I'm like, oh, well, cool. I'm the one pulling it together. So I'm going to pick something that I'm interested in. And so this was one of the questions that we had at the end. Our whole topic this week was kind of along the lines of mentoring and coaching and getting people to kind of buy into the assistive technology process, and how do we do that, and how do we kind of build that capacity as we go. And so I thought a conversation starter for us right now could be the strategies you use to facilitate communication with the people you're working with, and kind of build this transparency in your service delivery and kind of get them on board with delivering effective services at the same time. So you can kind of take that question any way you want. I just like this idea of that transparency. And to me, when I think transparency for team members, I feel like everybody invested in it. And that makes me think of, when I think of transparency, the words, that's what it means to me a lot of times. So I'll throw it
Well,
out.
you answered my question because I was going to ask a question about your question and
Cool.
have you better define transparency. But I think maybe I gathered it now, because transparency to me could be like, I don't have a dog in the fight about what we're choosing kind of transparency, like, vendor neutral kind of transparency, or like transparency about the process.
Take it in either way. You tell me. Maybe that's a good part of that question, is that it leaves it so broad. You can kind of define it the way you want. All right, so I'll ask you then, Alyssa. People with no dog in the fight.
Well, I think to me, the important thing is, it's one of the luxuries of working in a school system where I have access to a Toby or a PRC or whatever. Like, to me, the transparency on my end is I want whatever, when we do a feature match for whatever technology, I want it to be the technology that works for the kid. And it's not, I only have Toby, so I have to, recommend Toby Dynavox. And so I think in that transparency, I always like to lay that on the table. Like, yes, all of your class might be using X, but maybe this kid needs lamp words for life. And that's not the system that's happening in the classroom. Or, maybe everybody else in the class is on a PC laptop and this kid needs an iPad, or, like whatever that piece is. But I think in terms of strategies, I think our district as a whole, I hope most people know what the process is. In terms of, we do a screening that's kind of like RTI or MTSS, and that leads to potentially an evaluation, although some kids never get there because we meet their needs with that first level of screening. So I think because that portion is open and known, like it's not a mystery, like how do I get AT support?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that is landing in anywhere near what you're asking with this question, though.
Yeah, I think it can be either, it can kind of land in either spot, quite honestly. I'm also thinking about, when I write a question like that, I think of those spots where they're not familiar with the process, understanding what goes into the process, and make false assumptions that it's just, you're going to hand me a Chromebook and it's all going to work out. And so there's that too. And so that transparency part, or kind of that building up a bit of a capacity on the other end to kind of have them understand what goes into this feature match process, and that it's not just as easy as handing you something else and it's all going to magically resolve itself. I don't have anybody else.
So I think, in looking at this question and sort of talking about transparency, I know we sort of had a thread about this on Twitter of different coaching books. And a lot of us talked about the book Better Conversations by Jim Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think reading that book helped me a lot with coaching teams and being transparent. And I'm thinking about it in a way of that I don't know everything, and I can't come in and see a student one time and give you a perfect tool.
Right.
And so in his book, he talks a lot about like collaboration. So not me coming in as the expert, but that we're gonna result in better decisions at the end if we consider that everybody in the room is an expert and has value. And so being transparent in that way, that like, I don't know every tool, I don't know your student as well as you do, but I can definitely help guide you to decision making. Sorry,
yeah,
Mike.
No, that makes perfect. That's okay. We could have taken the kids too. That was fun. One of them just walked past you, not to get freaked out, but just came by. No, I think that's true. That Jim Knight book that we were talking about online.
I own it, and I almost opened it yesterday, but then I have the Better Conversations and then like the study guide that goes with it. And then that one that you just held up, Mike, is my next purchase. The impact one.
The impact cycle, yeah. The other one, and it goes to kind of the heart of what Sarah's talking about, and kind of what Alyssa's talking about too. Like, I'm just pulling them all off my list of books to read. I'm starting to read a lot of these coaching books that are all about effective question asking. And I think that this doesn't matter that this book's not written about AT. This is about asking thoughtful questions. And I think that's become part of what I'm looking at when I look to some of these things of how to better serve teams effectively. Because I don't want them to feel like they're just going to sit back and wait and I'm going to answer all the questions and I'm going to tell them every app that's out there and every tool that's out there, because I don't know every tool that's out there.
Well, and I think that's the getting away from expert model, building
Right.
capacity at the local level thing, which I think every one of us has struggled for every
Yeah.
year that we've been doing this to try to
Right.
get people in that better space.
Yeah, and I think starting to look at some of these books does that, because it puts me in the right mindset when I talk to the groups of it's starting to be, and I make this a professional goal every year, and sometimes I hit it, sometimes I don't, but it is to talk less and listen more, and it's my professional goal every year, and sometimes I do it really well, and yeah, as you see from right now, I do it poorly sometimes too because I talk a lot. But if I'm listening well and I'm asking just that one question that triggers them to then own this a bit and talk for a while and start to work through some of their own. I mean, I know we've all seen it. A lot of the teams we work with, they have the answers already. They have, or at least the beginnings, the kernel of an answer. And they're just not feeling comfortable enough about where they are. They're getting lost in sometimes the mystique of what AT is. Oh, I don't know assistive technology. But like Sarah said, they know their student and they know how to effectively teach. So they know those things. So who cares that you don't know that part? And so I think it's really interesting to get through this. And so I'm really enjoying some of these. So this one's up next on the pile. I'm looking at some of the other ones because I figure why not? It's going to be a book party here. This one, oh, you know which one's really good?
What's
Don't
the
mind
one
me
you just held up? What's the big question mark one?
The big question mark one is called A More Beautiful Question. And the author is Warren Berger, Berger. Yeah, it's called A More Beautiful Question. And I think his other book is called something like Better Questions. And then this was like the next book. Yeah, here's the other book. This is the one I just finished his, and then I bought this next one. The Book of Beautiful Questions. And this is also Warren Berger. And as you can see, in true reading a book fashion, I've post-it noted all the pages that have some good stuff in it to share with teams. And it's really kind of simple ideas, but really things, I like the ideas. This book was really good. If I'm going to make you spend money, sorry, Alyssa, you always say that I do that. Just listen to the titles of these chapters from him. Questions for better decision making, questions for sparking creativity, questions to help connect with others, questions for stronger leadership. That's how the book was broken down.
That's the Book of
really
Beautiful
good.
Questions, not More Beautiful Questions.
The Book of Beautiful Questions.
Okay, I'm trying to link them in the
I
chat
know,
box
you're
as you.
awesome. Thank you.
God bless double monitors.
I know, I love it. That's great. So I mean, when I start looking at those, and Alyssa, you'll know this here, it has to come out every once in a while, right? Everyday Instructional Coaching.
Yeah.
Alyssa and I, our favorite book that I effectively color coded all of the chapters as I read it. But a really simple tool. The transparency pieces came from one of the conversations in this book, which is one of the chapters was about transparency. This is Nathan Lang, Everyday Instructional Coaching, 7 Daily Drivers to Support Teacher Effectiveness. So, I mean, if that doesn't force you to spend some money, I don't know what the heck will.
Sorry, not sorry to your bank accounts.
Yeah, I apologize to you. If you put some in the chat, don't worry, I'll turn around and buy those, and you will have given it right back to me. So that's okay. Because this has become kind of my really big area of interest. So it seems like those are the books that I'm buying lately. To really help me.
And I feel like what I've started to do is similar to Jennifer, the slides you shared. Like I kind of am taking the everyday instructional coaching, trying to match the SET framework, trying to match person-centered planning, and put it in a format like you've done in your slides where it's easily accessible.
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily care that somebody knows the steps or the pieces of a SET framework. It'd be great if they did. But I just want them to for the process to be transparent, to use your words, so that it's not like anybody is playing the expert in this game. That, yeah, I may have technical knowledge on how to do a certain thing, but like, you have knowledge about your kid because you've raised them since they were born that I don't have. So I like your slides, Jennifer. How are they working for you? Because I know you'd shared them before.
Sorry, I'm having technical issues. Can you hear me?
Now we can
Yes.
hear you, yes.
Yeah, I had to take off my headphones there. So one of the things, the reason why I got to that is I was doing some AAC evaluations, and we had a lot of people who wanted to be involved, which was wonderful. We had therapists in our district, we had outside agencies that the families were wanting to join in. We had the families, you know, it was just a lot to organize. And what I like about slides is, the point of slides is you don't put everything on the slide, you just put the highlights. So when you're really busy and you're just kind of looking for those highlights of what am I supposed to do, it kind of keeps it simple and organized nicely. But the other thing I wanted to jump in with is, what we did is we limited most of the sessions to 2 district staff at a time. So I just had a Google Doc, and everybody filled out like when they wanted to attend. That way I was meeting like twice a week with some of these families, and that way people could kind of rotate in and out, because when we're talking about, you know, that transparency and that communication, it got to be too overwhelming when there were too many people that you're trying to coach and work with all at the same time. And so I think, although sometimes we want to open it up to a bigger group, sometimes in order for people to feel comfortable sharing how they're feeling or sharing where they're struggling, that smaller group really, you know, like was a ton better, and we got a lot more conversation going during those sessions than when we had larger groups. So that was really an important piece of some of the coaching that we were doing as well. And what was your original question?
No, I was asking kind of, how is it working for you? Because it kind of seems like a mashup of, like, if I do person-centered planning and do that, like, because I've facilitated those meetings before with the path, it kind of looks like a combination of the SET framework and the path and you know, AAC eval all mashed into one. And I just was curious. Obviously it's working for you because you're doing it.
Well, and it was really coaching, and like, so the beginning of the slides, and they're kind of color coded, we always identified, and at the beginning of every session we would always review what the parents' long-term goals were, and then what their short-term goals were, and are we making progress towards those goals. And that would be sort of that person-centered planning, I think, where we're really keeping that in focus. And then there was always like a to-do. So there were things that I would be working on, but there would also be things that the parent could be working on at home, and then some support. So like you were talking about AAC, I could go pull some of those YouTube videos, put it right in there. And a lot of this we would go over during the sessions, but it was, again, another support for that family if they forgot how to do it, because they're getting so much information. I keep hearing that from parents, they're getting so much information. Sometimes they have an outside agency doing the eval. We're stepping in and supporting. And, you know, there's just so many people, and they're all telling them, like, I have one mom last week that said, I'm hearing different things from every single person. And I just don't know. And I think we're all maybe saying the same thing in similar ways, but not using the same terminology. And that's confusing for this family. So that what I like about this is it keeps it all very succinct. And then towards the end is just some slides that this was actually, it started out as a presentation that I made a copy of. And all my presentation slides are at the end, because as we were talking about maybe core vocabulary, or as we were talking about aided language, I could go back to those slides and use those as an example, instead of going, oh, I have it somewhere here, let me go find it in my 10 million, you know, presentations that I have. So I kind of used this as a base, but we didn't actually go through all the time. And I did this with multiple families. We didn't always go through all those slides. It was just as we needed, as it came up in conversation. And then sometimes I would reference those throughout the, you know, in their to-do thing. So it was helpful for organizing. And like, parents would send me videos of their student or their child doing something, and I could link in those videos so the whole team could see that. Yeah. So it kind of became this really living, breathing coaching, documentation. You know, it had a lot of purposes. It wasn't just
Well,
one purpose.
yeah, and to me, it kind of looks like an AAC evaluation or consideration portfolio.
Yes, I was just thinking that word portfolio was about to pour out of my face. Yeah.
That's
I
scary,
took
Mike.
all the data and
Awesome.
ended up putting that into my speech generating device evaluation. So I was taking my data and putting it in here, and then turning that into my speech generating device evaluation. So I mean, again, it had multiple purposes. But what a lot of the feedback I got from a lot of the teachers, especially as we had students transitioning, is this would be really great for the next teachers to be able to go back and see this. And you know, like back when I was a kid, they had these paper manila folders on every student, and examples of your work went into it. I kind of see this as the same sort of thing, where it can transition digitally from teacher to teacher, so that there is that documentation. There are those videos of how they were doing, and we're not going back and reteaching. I always think there's too much reteaching or starting over of things. So I don't know. We'll see how it evolves over the next, year, and see if we keep adding on to this. But the purpose of this one was really for an SGD evaluation.
Well, and I could absolutely see it being same but different for consideration for a kid with access needs.
Right.
Yeah.
Like to me, this is a digital portfolio. And then did you get like releases of information for the outside people to have access to the everything?
I yes, for the therapy side, yes. I never invited people into the meetings. I always let the parents share the meeting link to join the meeting. That way I didn't have to worry about it. In most cases we did, but like we have this OT therapy place called Exceptional Equestrians, and the OT from there wanted to join in, and she would always ask me if it was okay, and then whoever you want, that's fine. Let's just try to keep it to a smaller group. So every week maybe she would have an outside therapist join in the meeting as they could. So yeah,
I think that's awesome. I think that when I hear you describing that, Jennifer, and I go down that rabbit hole of portfolio like Alyssa did. It goes back to some of the things I think of with teams is to look at Google Sites for that same basic idea of what you're doing, in that you're embedding things and making this living document. When you said living document, it made me smile, because that's exactly what I think of that as. It's just constantly evolving, and it's different for each person, but yet it's the same in some way.
Yeah, and I mean, even like if we're doing some coaching, maybe with reading and writing support, you're meeting with the family, you're meeting with the student, you can put those links in there. Again, it's almost your documentation. And so why not share it out with the family? So let's say maybe they're not using the tool right now, but maybe in a couple months their high school classes change and they want to go back to using it. Rather than emailing you and say, hey, I can't remember how to do that, if they have access to this tool, they could maybe go back, watch a video. You could even record your session if you had permission, that meeting with that family, and then put that link back in here so that they can recall their whole conversation. Or you can just go out and find links to how-to videos.
Yeah. And the beauty of it is everybody can do that. The family members could do those things. Maybe they're trolling around the internet and find a really great video that they want to share with the team. They can drop it in there. And then it gives everyone ownership of this shared collaborative space that, you're right, is only going to make it better to provide service. And it's only going to cause you to not have to go back to square one every year, right? Because it's already there and someone can see what had happened and the value of it.
Well, and again, even some of that, well, why did we maybe change tools, or what wasn't working? If you're documenting that, future teachers can maybe go back and look at that and be like, oh, that was tried in the past. It didn't work for these reasons, if that's documented and shared out.
Right.
And I kind of got the idea from a teacher of ours who does student-centered IEPs, where she has the student put together a whole IEP like presentation and presents, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what tools help them, about their family, those types of things. And that kind of got me thinking, well, this is a really great tool for our families to be able to have access to and have some control. And like I said, they could put in some videos of how they were working, how things were working. And you could even watch that video with the team, go back and say, okay, what would I do differently? Or why isn't this working? Or here's some suggestions we have. So I don't know, I like the idea of it.
Yeah, I like it. And talk about something that fits squarely into this idea of transparency of how you deliver service.
Yeah.
This is right there. Here it all is. We're all in this together. We've all collaborated into something. No one is a gatekeeper of all the information, because that tends to be where we get in trouble.
Now, in this case, I did have it, so I had editing only access because there were so many people involved, and I was using this for my documentation and putting it into my speech generating device evaluation, and I didn't want anybody to be able to change that, but they would email me like, here's the video, and I would put it in. And again, I would always be presenting these slides at the beginning of our session and reviewing how are we doing on our goals. And so to a certain point, I was a gatekeeper in that sense. When I did open it up to people, I would probably make a copy so that I retained my original, like nobody can change my data or anything, but open it up to families in the future to be able to do some editing. But in this instance, for my evaluation, I kept editing only rights and gave everyone else view only.
Yeah.
And I could, go ahead.
Sorry, Alyssa, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I could see where you could still have them have edit rights to the slides, but then your linked data forms that you're using to keep data, Google Docs, Sheets, whatever you're using them, then that could be something that is just view only as embedded, whether you embed it in the slide or you link it and they can only view that. I could see that way that, and I honestly, when I think about my families, probably 5% of them would ever want to add something to the slide. But I could see if I gave them edit rights to the slides, but then preserve some of the embedded material as view only, that might be the happy medium for those families.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what the parent did. They were emailing, they were taking photos or emailing me their data sheets for the data collection at home. And then I was linking those in, and they could have easily have done that too. But there's just some families where their technological skills are different. So sometimes it's better to be that gatekeeper and put it in for them and not add to their to-do list either.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great way to organize things, and I've continued to do this a lot for many different things now.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. That kind of partial gatekeeper effect is another reason why I like doing things in Google Sites. Exactly for what Alyssa said. They can manage the page, but if my document's embedded there, they can't have edit rights. That is view only, and so there are those kind of balances a little bit. I can appreciate the wanting to keep some things under control, even though I tend to be more of a, what is it, Murph? No plan. Just kind of let it ride. Just fine. You want all access? I dare you to edit this. Go ahead. That's
well, I was going to say you have revision history. So, if something really happened to the file, you go backwards. But I can understand initially being like a little more hesitant to do that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and especially with things like evaluation data and things like that, you want those pieces of that to be somewhat controlled while giving that balance of everything else. And I agree. There's many families. When you guys said it, it made me think of it. There's many families I work with that would not go in there and edit things. But if they had a space to be able to say, I wish this page had X, then we would put it in and they would use it. And so for some of those people, I tend to give them a Google form. We embed the form on the first page of that and say, if you want to add something, if you want us to put something in, or you want to see this set up a different way, put your comment in there and let it go to the spreadsheet, and then we'll pull the info off there to actually fix it. That's a way to look at it too. Cool. Thanks, Jennifer, for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I had something else, but it's kind of separate to what you guys were talking about.
Please,
before.
go ahead.
Kind of going back to some of the coaching books and different things like that. One thing that I get to be a part of is we have CISOs throughout the state of Wisconsin that help support our districts. And they have some really nice coaching workshops where you can actually practice asking those questions. And I think that's really important especially when you first start with coaching. But I find all the time I need practice because, like you said, Mike, like sometimes you just start talking more and more and you forget about, just asking those open-ended questions. And I feel like I need to practice those every once in a while, really just to make sure that those questions are coming up in my brain. I have cheat sheets sometimes in a notebook where I've got some of those questions listed out that when I'm coaching someone, I might be looking at some of those questions. But I think it's really important to have the opportunity to practice those skills.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that is really critical. You're right. Because as much as you write these things down, we have to have those opportunities to talk with each other. I like having these really nice conversations with the teams I'm working with about asking questions. And I ask it to them in a way as, how would you ask questions of the people you're working with? How would you ask it of the other teachers? And we start to get a sense of where they are comfort level. Because you're right. I mean, it's having to ask questions is for some people very different to what they're used to. They're used to being on the receiving, they're answering questions. They're rarely asked to ask a question. They're just asked to just give reports, if you will, about what's happening. And so it's a different mindset. And because they're not asked to do that a lot, it takes some reflection to think about what it looks like. You have to sit and reflect a little bit on that, of how do I do that? My other question from AT Chat that I almost put in there, and then I put that one, was about how do you generate moments of reflection throughout the day? Personally, and for the people you're working with, how do you encourage reflection? Because I think that's something we don't do nearly enough of. And sometimes it has to be explicit. Just I've done this multiple times. Just put a slide up and just say, take a minute and reflect, and I'll just turn the mic off, and that's it. You're going to have a minute to reflect. You might not do much, reflect much, because it caught you off guard, but if we can start to generate those moments and have them do that, I think that can be really powerful. I mean, how many of us do we just go through the day from one thing to another? I'm going to leave us at 1, and I have to go present a webinar at 1. So, I mean, that there's no time to reflect on what we talked about until I'm done with that. And then I'll rush around, and then I have class tonight that I have to teach, and so I'll probably get those materials together sometime this afternoon. And so there's all of that. And then, suddenly it's 9 o'clock and I haven't any chance to reflect. And I think it's so important, and we just don't do it enough. Especially that I'm not in the car anymore now. The car was my reflection moment. Right? You leave an appointment.
Say that.
Yeah.
The same for me is I would do my podcast on my morning commute. So I'm learning, my brain's working, work all day. And then on the way home, I just put on music. And that's reflection time. I think about what I listened to in the morning, what happened during the day. And now I don't have that at all. So I guess I need to be more purposeful about building it in. Although I am going back to work Monday in person. So
then there you go. Then that should help, right? That should help you get back on track. I have that same thing. And it's funny, I did exactly the same thing. I would do podcasts in the morning. And then as the day went on the way home, I would have these little Post-it notepads. And when I got to a red light, or I'd pull over and I'd write a bunch of things frantically. And those would be my reflections for the day that I would go through. And now it's just not happening.
I thought it would help. I've been back in person for the last month, and I still haven't gotten back into the routine. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it might take longer than you think to be back in the podcast / reflection.
Yeah.
I believe that.
And part of it's because that routine is not really the same anymore. So the routine's different. It's the routine in a sense that you're going to the same place you used to, but what you're doing when you get there is different now, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still, it is. It's relearning a whole process. Yeah. It is interesting. So how do you guys, Alyssa, how do you do that now? How do you find time to reflect?
So I am usually pretty good about that afternoon drive. I've actually gone to no music. It's a weird thing to have nothing happening in the car but just me and my thoughts. but I found myself, if I were jumping to a podcast or listening to music, that I was like pushing away that reflection.
Mm.
So I was like, nope, let's do with it, because then I wanted to try to have that when I get home. That's not my reflection time, so that my brain can kind of make the transition to just being at home again. But the podcast in the morning, I have gotten back into that routine. My problem is I have such a backlog of podcasts, and they won't stop coming.
They won't stop coming.
So I will listen to the first little bit of one, and then I get like podcast ADD and I jump to a different one. So I need to do better about that part of the routine, because I'm usually good in between. Like if I'm going to a school and then coming back to my office, the in between time, I'm good about like dictating notes, you know, with text to speech or whatever, or speech to text as I'm driving, you know, but the end of the day part, I had to force myself to go no music, no nothing, and just reflect. It's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. Anybody else? What do you do? I'm looking for other ways to do it. I'm clearly not doing it well, so.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Kind of the bigger, in my mind, the bigger question is, why are we always multitasking, and why are we so busy? And do we need to start advocating for the fact that we can't do it all, and maybe we do need some additional support? And is that, because I feel like I'm always multitasking too much and doing too much, and that's why I don't have time to reflect. And I know there's no simple answer to that, but we, like for our AT referrals, we have a Google spreadsheet, and we've tracked them the last 4 years that I've been in the district, and we've been able to show how those referrals are growing and growing. Already, it's the start of the year, and I think last year we were over 100 referrals for the year. This year, at the, you know, not even a month in, and we're already at 30 referrals, which the beginning of the year is always busier. But I was asked, because we were subs, to sign up on a sub calendar, and I would have to sign up for 4 days a month, which means I have to leave my schedule open 4 days. I can work on things at home, but it can't be scheduling meetings. And I simply said, here, I'm too busy. I'm sorry. It's not worth me getting sick and being around all those people, because then you've lost me entirely. You know, look at all the referrals we have. And so I think that no button sometimes is really important too. Just because I think we all want to help everybody, and we say yes too much.
And then we end up helping everybody except ourselves.
Yeah.
That's exactly,
we don't have that reflection time. So, you know, maybe what is the cause of that too? Yeah.
And it is feeling comfortable enough to say that to people. I mean, I had to say that to someone from a project I was working on. They emailed me on Friday night, and I didn't respond. And then they emailed me on a Saturday morning to follow up, and I didn't respond. And then they emailed me on a Saturday afternoon to follow up, and I did respond because I was tired of seeing the notifications pop up on my phone. And they said, hey, I saw your message last night, and I put the time. I said, I saw your message last night at 8 o'clock. I've decided to not answer emails over the weekend, so I'd be happy to answer you on Monday, and we can talk about this. But I'm getting your message. Don't worry. And then I just left it at that.
Mike, did you see what I just put into the chat? Did you see what I just put into the chat? As we're talking about how I didn't work over the weekend, a teacher
great.
just texted me right now, frantically saying, are you okay? Is your family okay? I haven't heard from you on this question.
That's great.
So I think I should respond and say I purposefully did not look at my emails, and I've been doing teletherapy all day. So.
Yeah. And again, but you know, it's so funny, Sarah, that message and the story I just told, what does that say? That says about us, that we are constantly responding and working is what it's saying. I mean, it's clearly you're the same. And I've had those messages, are you okay? And I'm like, well, that's a very weighted question.
It's a loaded
but,
question.
I'm okay-ish, I'm fine. But just because you don't hear from me within 20 minutes, in this case, over a weekend.
Yeah, I've decided I am putting on a weekend autoresponder.
I just thought of that this morning. It's so funny.
That says I haven't decided yet what, but it encourages them to also practice self-care as I am practicing self-care by not responding to work emails over the weekend. It's going to be way more profound in the wording than that.
I don't doubt it. But
I'm
like
gonna
the idea. But yeah, you'll make it nice and flowery and fancy. But yeah,
I think it's the only way to retrain them.
Yeah.
Because either they've trained us or we've trained them. I'm not sure which. I'm sure it's a little bit of both.
I think
that we
definitely.
we all get the Friday night email followed by the Saturday. I know I emailed you yesterday. I'm not sure if you got my message the day before. Yes, I got them all, but like I have not really, unless it's like my boss or, you know, something big, have not been answering work emails on the weekend for a while, but I do get those panicky, just like you did, Murph, like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, it's just Saturday.
Yeah. You could argue I'm really okay because
I have
it's so funny.
Yeah, right. I use the schedule send on my email so that even if I do respond to something, I'll schedule it for like 8 a.m. the next day just to start, like you said, retraining them. I'm not looking at this at 7 or 8 p.m.
Yeah, there's a way to do that, and I think that Alyssa, you're on the right track with this whole idea of the kind of the weekend auto respond to remind them to take care of themselves also. I think is really important.
I think that's that OT part of me, like wanting to have that therapeutic use of self, which is part of our scope of practice, like trying to figure out a good way to help reinforce and not just be like, I'm blowing you off because I don't care about whatever you're asking, you know. And there are some things I will respond to. If a parent emails me and says the device is not working, my kid can't communicate, they're going to get a reply back most likely. If my big boss replies or supervisor replies, but in our Gmail, the way that it's set up for our domain, I can have it auto reply just to people within ACPS. And I think in within my school system, I think that's where I'm going to start. And then if I get an outside email or a vendor email, whatever, they're going to get the auto reply, but it's less likely that unless it's a parent, it's going to be something that's like a emergent thing.
Right.
So I think I might try that this weekend and see, I have a whole week to think about it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I've been thinking about this over the past week because last week I had a day that I just sat here at my desk staring out the window, longingly staring out the window, and realized I didn't do any work for like hours. And I'm like, wow, I haven't done anything, and it feels pretty great actually. And I thought that's because I'm doing work constantly every other time. So I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna kind of ease this off a little bit. So. Yeah, I think this is a good plan.
All right, Murph, I'll take you up on
Murph's
that.
on the right track. I'm going to send you an email on the weekend too to see what it says. So now we're going to flood your email box with emails just to see what it comes back.
That's okay. I can swipe to delete pretty quick.
Yeah, good enough. That's fair. That's definitely makes sense.
No, I would not delete y'all. But
because
yeah,
I would just
I'll
keep
come up with something.
Emailing you and say, "What's wrong, Alyssa? Are you okay? You didn't respond to my list."
I'm not sure if you got my email yesterday, but I think that's my favorite one. And again, I think I've trained them. I'm sure I have because it's been Saturday and I've been, you know, replying to emails or solving problems. I know, like I'm as guilty as anybody of them poking me versus me being willing to answer back. So I'm going to come up with something and it'll probably have a funny little, you know, GIF or GIF in it just to make people not think I'm like the meanest person ever. But I think it's important that we at least try to do something. Cause I mean, who knows, like, okay, so the state of Florida has now opened itself back up again.
Yeah. Congratulations.
So between that and the UF and Santa Fe students, I'm anticipating that it's very likely that by Thanksgiving, we're back on a full stop. So I want to try to create some boundaries now because once I get back home, it's harder for me to have, once I'm in home all the time, it's harder for me to have the boundaries. So I'm going to try. It's recorded. I have witnesses. We'll see.
It's just like me saying that last week during the chat, and then I put the picture up on my wall to stare at it. If you don't come to AT Chat on Wednesdays, you miss the fact that I somehow said I would sing. I look back at it. I don't know why I said that, but it's a good
I was
life
gonna
lesson.
ask after you stopped recording. I was gonna ask if the picture was there, but since
The
you brought it
picture is
up,
there.
I'm very proud that the picture is there.
It's up there. It fell off the wall this morning because the tape unstuck, and I was like, look at that. It'd be a shame if the dog was to eat that picture.
Oh, but there are
Really
so
feel
many
like he
people who
wanted
have
no
a
parts.
screenshot. There are
Nah,
so many people who have screenshots, so I
okay.
don't think you're getting out of that one, friend.
That's fine. It's okay. Um, as we think, because I am going to pay attention to the time so I can get to my other webinar at least somewhat on time. Other thoughts as we go forward? AT Chat this week is an open forum, so I don't have anything to pull from unless it comes up in questions. I don't have anything for next week. Anybody have a topic you want to attack on this conversation next week? And I know I just dropped that bomb on you at the end, but you don't have to answer right now. If you think of something, email me.
Well, maybe we can hedge our bets and see what comes out of AT Chat open forum. And if
Yeah.
something exciting does, great. And if not, maybe we come up with something between Wednesday and Monday.
Yeah. Yeah. But if something grabs you, if this kind of conversation, I always think this is a different conversation than the Twitter chat. So I think it has an opportunity to kind of breathe a little bit. So if there's some kind of bigger topic people want to talk about, this might make sense to do it here. And so if you have an idea, something that you want to take control and run with the hour, I'm all for it. I'll sit quietly. Oh, it'll be great. I'll sit back. It'll be the best.
You'll sit quietly.
I'll sit quietly. Write that down. I'll put that up on the wall. I'll sit quietly. That's why it's a professional goal every year. Sit quietly. Say less. So any other thoughts before I wrap us up? I did it. I did it.
I was just going to say, what about next week, if there aren't any topics, we could even maybe do like a case study and practice some of those coaching questions.
I like that.
I'm not offering a case study. I might think we've got lots.
I just wrote your name next to it, so it's fine.
but that was the bulk of our conversation, so it might be good to, kind of how, what would you do in this situation, or how would you?
Yeah. And maybe it's just the idea of here's a situation. What kind of questions could we go with to start this conversation? All right, yeah, that's really cool, actually. All right, I'm leaving that on a sticky right here, and I'm going to think about that as we go through the week. And you're not being voluntold that you have to run it, even though Murph voluntold you. We'll let you off the hook a little bit, Jennifer. But if you think of stuff, kind of scenarios, it's not even case studies, it's scenarios. Imagine if, and then this happened, what would we do? I think that's a cool idea. And I'll pull some of the, even if it's just some of the topics of some of these books, like what they talk about, and then maybe we can just kind of branch off in some discussion about that as well. All right, cool. We'll do that. That's a good plan. If anybody else thinks of something, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to add that to the list. Shoot me a message on Twitter, whatever you want to do. I'm game for either.
I saved the chat box, and I'm going to try to get those resources up in somewhere on the AT Chat page, resources page, or something like that.
Maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe just
somewhere.
a running list of coaching resources. Yeah, I think that's perfect. I'll save it too, so we have.
I'll do it on Friday, not on Saturday.
No, that's fine. If you did it on Saturday, I'd be mad. I would email you multiple times and say, why are you doing that on Saturday? All right, guys, anything else before we wrap up? What a fun hour. That was fun. I got to pull books off the shelf. That's fun. All right, now I'm going to stack them back up. And I will see you guys on Wednesday night. If you're around, join us for AT Chat. It's the open forum. It's a little bit of anything. Anything and everything. And we'll see you all next week. All right, guys. Have a good week.
Bye, guys.
See ya.